He was discovered by Tony Hawk at a young age and was able to travel the world. He was discovered by Tony Hawk at a young age, and he was able to travel the world as a professional skateboarder. Eventually, Brandon also rose to fame as an MTV celebrity. Although he appeared to have it all, behind the scenes, Brandon Novak's life was falling apart from heroin addiction. After more than 25 years of addiction, Brandon was finally able to find recovery. He is now sharing his story and helping others find recovery as well. Brandon Novak, everybody.
Statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I am to be high or dead right now. And the fact that I'm not is A, miraculous, equaling a miracle, and B, it defies logic. Because the sad reality is, and you're gonna hear in my story to be true, the disease of addiction does not discriminate. From Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are the same. And 1 out of 3 people will be directly or indirectly affected. Today in the nation, 179 people will die as a result of an opioid overdose. That's just opioids. And the really sad part about what I just shared with you is that all 179 deaths that will take place today in the nation are 100% preventable. May 25th, 2015, I found myself in a position in life where I was divinely inconvenienced in just such a manner that the God of my understanding showed up and created just a big enough gap between me and the last bag of heroin that I injected into my arm, to allow me to have a moment of clarity to see what my life really looked like was. And at that very moment, I was no longer accepting of the outcome that I continuously created for myself as a direct result of my disease of addiction. May 25th, 2015, I was walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. I had lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother had bought me a plot. People had begun to take life insurance policies out on me. May 23rd, 2015, I just came to after being on life support at Mercy Hospital, the very same hospital my mother's on the board of, a nuclear physicist at, for 7 days. I had been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. My mother had sold 3 homes to financially pay for me to go to 2 different treatment centers. In the beginning of my alcoholism and my addiction, my mother used to get on her knees and pray to God, please God, do not let tonight be the night that I receive that phone call that my son has finally succumbed to his addiction. Please God, don't let tonight be that night. To at the end, a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who resided on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, prostituting his body just to secure enough finances to acquire another bag of heroin. My mother getting on her very same knees, praying to the very same God, please God, let tonight be the night that I receive that phone call that my son has finally died as a direct result of his addiction. Please let tonight be the night that I receive that phone call, just so I can know for once in my life that he is finally safe and at peace. How did I get there? How did I get there? Because I don't know anybody that's here listening to my story, but as a child, I had goals, I had dreams, I had aspirations, I had ambitions. I was going to be somebody, and you're gonna hear in my story that I became somebody. I had done a lot of things in life that people would equate to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. But in reality, I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who resides in a shooting gallery in West Baltimore. Everything that I own in this world consists of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, a stick of deodorant. It fits into a bag that doubles as my pillow, a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order. How did I get here? I want to kill myself on a daily basis. I just don't want to hurt myself in the process. I'm terrible at suicide because I keep waking up. And for the first time in my life, May 25th, 2015, I found myself in a position in life where I was so low the curb looked like a skyscraper. Born and raised in Baltimore City, come from a very good home with a really loving family. Now, if you would have asked me what my child life looked like early in the sobriety of 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year into, I would have told you I came from the most troubling home with the most debilitating childhood that no one should ever endure. That's not the case. The reality is I came from a loving family that did the best they could with what they had. And what that looked like for me was my mother, God bless her soul. She's the MVP in my story. My mother acquired her first job at the age of 16 in Baltimore City at Mercy Hospital as a phlebotomist, drawing blood for $5 a pop as a child. Literally worked her way up the ladder to become a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital. Just recently retired after 53 years of gainful employment, second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history. My brother, as a child, he wanted to be an attorney his whole life. By the time he passed the bar and he graduated law school, he was literally blinded in student debt. He had no idea what his next move was going to be to get himself out of the position that he had created for himself. I can relate to that. Today, currently, he resides as an attorney in the White House practicing pensions and benefits. My father taught me one thing in life, if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. Never held a job a day in his life. Ran with the Hells Angels, rather unsavory kind of fellow, if you will. Unfortunately, he acquired the likings of crack cocaine. His body shut down. He's no longer here with us. Me, on the other hand, I received my first skateboard at the age of 7. And that night when my mother put me to bed, she said, "Brandon, what would you like me to do with your skateboard?" And I thought about it for a second, and I said, I want it in bed with me. And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because if I die, I want this skateboard to go to heaven with me." The moment that board touched my hand, I knew I was going to be a professional skateboarder. There was no reason for a plan B, a trait, or an option. Now, mind you, I didn't end up on this stage or a person in long-term recovery because I took the short bus to school. It's quite the contrary, actually. I got here because I was too smart for my own good. But unfortunately, I have a tendency of outthinking myself out of any sensible decision that I'm about to make that's going to better my life. Why? Because I possess this job that consists of knowing everything. Right? So when you kindly suggest to me what I should ultimately do to save my life, I'm going to kindly suggest why you should get lost, because I know. Right? May 25th, 2015, just came to after being on life support for 7 days. Walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. Worldly belongings consist of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, stick of deodorant, a needle, a spoon. Fits into a bag that doubles as my pillow and a restraining order. I come to the realization that what I do know is that I don't know. And that my very best thinking has placed me here yet again, despite the successful accolades that I'll share with you when I get into my story. I'm the kind of guy that if I believe it, I can see it. It does not have to be the other way around. The moment that board touches my hand, I know I'm going to be a professional skateboarder. I eat it, I breathe it, I sleep it, I dream it. At the age of 14, I'm the first skateboarder in the world to be endorsed by Gatorade. They're flying me to Chicago to the Quake Roads building where they make Gatorade at the time. They put me on a treadmill, they put Michael Jordan on a treadmill directly next to me. They strap these EKGs to our chests and they give us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. At 15, I'm designing my pro model for Powell Peralta. I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk, and I have a private tutor that flies with. Keep in mind, the disease of addiction does not discriminate Yale or jail, White House or the outhouse. The results are all the same. Now, from a very young age, my father was the best man in the world. Everybody loved Jerome. But when Jerome didn't come home at 5 to 5:30 to make dinner, we knew what we were in for when we heard him and his biker buddies pull up to the house at 3:30. We shook like leaves when his key hit the lock because we had no idea who was going to walk through that door. So I had a very clear, conscious description of what alcoholism and addiction looked like from a very young age, when I was full of ambition, when I was full of desire, and I was going to be somebody and take over the world. As a matter of fact, I excelled at everything that I did to prove a point why I would never become my father. I excelled at everything I did to prove that I would not become him. The reason why I share that with you is because I can't tell you your story. I'm not going to pretend to understand what brought you to this field to listen to my talk, but what I can tell you is my story. And my story looks like this. The first time that I ingested a drink, that I sniffed a line, that I ate a pill, that I hit a pipe or shot a bag, I didn't have that euphoric feeling of aha. I finally found what's been missing in my life for so long. I was not lacking anything. As a matter of fact, skateboarding did for me at a very young age what drugs and alcohol did for me at a later age. Right? You give me that skateboard at the age of 7, you put me in a room with the world's prettiest models, I'll not only believe they've been waiting for me, but that they're dying to marry me. Drugs and alcohol later on down the road created that same delusional narrative. I don't recall the first time I ingested a drink or a drug. But what I can tell you about as sure as the day is long, just like I'm holding this microphone in my hand, I can recall the moment that someone attempted to stand between me and it. Right? And you're going to hear in my story, I'm generally usually pretty graphic, but there's a wide array of ages here, so I'm going to bring it down. But I'm generally very descriptive, I'm very graphic. As a matter of fact, I keep my past married to my present, because the moment that this addict / alcoholic forgets the pain that brought him through treatment center doors number 13, begging to God for one more chance, I've seen myself return, right? And again, unfortunately, anything in my story that stands between me and the next drink or drug, it must and will go. And it's never personal, it's just business for the game that I play, because the reality is I don't want to do the things that I have to do in order to acquire my next fix. But the reality is the disease from which I possess, when it talks, I have no other choice but to listen. And when it demands, I must obey. I don't know what brought you here, but I understand the severity of the disease for which I've been diagnosed with. And today, a man talking to you with over 7 years of continuous sobriety, what I've learned in my story is that in my life, as a matter of fact, everything is in retrospect. My life today is lived forward and learned backwards. So it's very easy for me to see how I got here. I got here because I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart, comparing out, focusing only on the differences, not the similarities, all while possessing this job that consisted of knowing everything, and most importantly, every time I stepped into the ring with my disease, I underestimated the opponent that I was up against. Because I was never armed with the facts of the reality of my current situation, partly because I refused to accept responsibility. Ultimately, what I did for so many years is I just rearranged the furniture on the Titanic, but without fail, my ship sank every time. So what that looked like the first time that someone attempted to stand between me and a drink was this. I was on a tour with a bunch of professional skateboarders, and we happened to be in Chicago. And we would go from city to city, to state, and we would do these demos at these skate shops in each state. And I'm in Chicago, and I'm with a pro skater by the name of Mike Vallely. And Mike Vallely catches me with a whole bunch of drugs, and he said, "Brandon, get rid of the drugs." And as any good addict does, I listen, I take the drugs, I throw them down the sewer. We finish the demo, I go back to the hotel, I meet a woman, she drives me back to the sewer, I fish the drugs out of the sewer. And short story long, I get caught with the drugs, I'm now kicked off the tour. Right? Now see, my delusional alcoholic brain that I possess, the one that lies to me in my very own voice, making me believe the unbelievable, tells me that the skateboarding world needs me, it cannot go on without me, and I am an asset. In reality, the skateboarding world does not need me. It goes on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. But unfortunately, I'm the last person that ever recognizes that pattern that takes place throughout my whole life. Why? Because I possessed this job that consists of knowing everything, all while underestimating the opponent that I was up against. Paired with the fact that I did some things in life that people equate to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing, the reality of my delusional alcoholic brain and outlook on life is insane. I was the guy that was deemed unhelpful and unfixable. Now that I'm home, right? Tours are no longer being booked, flights are no longer being scheduled, video parts are no longer being produced, packages are no longer being sent to my house. Because see, in order for me to achieve such simple things in life, I have to have conversations that consist of words like honest, reliable, and dependable. And those words never help me get one more, so I avoid it like the plague. 2 weeks into my newfound freedom that I did not see coming, right? Because I've been kicked off this tour abruptly. One morning my mother walks into my room and she said, "Brandon, you have a phone call," and she throws the phone to me. I put the phone to my ear and it's Mr. Tony Hawk, and he said, "Look, Novak, we have one or two options we could do with you. We could put you into treatment, you could save your life, you can continue to escape from Palo Peralta and make an amazing career for yourself. Or you can quit the team." From 7 to 16, I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it, I became it. If I would have died at that young age, I would have achieved everything I ever asked for, plus 1,000,000 times more. And the first time Mr. Tony Hawk, my idol, the very same as like Santa Claus is to a child, is on the other end, throwing me a lifeline to save my life and salvage what I've destroyed at this point, I don't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I say I quit. The disconnection from reality is astronomical, and I've yet to step foot in treatment center number 1. That's... Wow. Wow. 2 months into my newfound freedom, one day my mother and my girlfriend come to me. They said, "Brandon, we have a great idea for you." I said, "What's that?" They said, "We want you to go to treatment." Now, I had just turned down this opportunity from Mr. Tony Hawk. Why do you think I would accept it from them? But I thought about it for a moment. I said, you know what? That's an amazing idea. A, I have the time. B, I'm going to report to said treatment center, and I'm going to report back to my mother and my girlfriend why I'm not you nut jobs, nor will I ever be. This was merely an overreaction at best. You just caught me at a bad time, on a bad way, and a bad day. Tomorrow is going to be different. Strap me to a polygraph. I will have every police officer in Cumberland, Maryland pat me on the back saying, "Brandon, we wish everyone is as honest as you are. If that were the case, the world would be a safer place to live in." That's how much I believe what I'm saying to you right now. Tomorrow is going to be different. Unfortunately, I wake up tomorrow to repeat yesterday's actions, and I'm stuck in Groundhog's Day for 25 years. We want you to go to treatment. I think about it, that's an amazing idea. I'm going to report to said treatments, and I'm going to report back to my mother and my girlfriend why I can drug successfully. This is just an overreaction. As quick as my mother gives me the offer, my bags are packed. They drop me to my first treatment center at the right young age of 17 in Baltimore City. As quick as she drops me off, she leaves. This very kind intake coordinator meets me outside. She said, "Are you Mr. Novak?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Follow me, please." She takes me into this cafeteria. The cafeteria is completely empty. There's these big, bright interrogation lights shining on me. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm detoxing off of heroin. And she sits me down and she said, "I'll be right back." No one's in this office. And out of nowhere, this older black gentleman walks into the room and he said, "White boy, what are you doing here?" I said, "Heroin." He said, "How old are you?" I said, 17. He said, "Do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this." As quick as he came, he left. He nor I